So far in this module, I've basically spent some time explaining to you how the cycle of low confidence and poor self-esteem works. And now I'm going to get into how to reverse the cycle. And I'll give you a specific example from my own life. I'm going to show you specifically how I managed to reverse this negative cycle when it came to my dating life, when it came to the way that I met girls. So I grew up extremely shy around girls. In fact, I went probably for the first 19 years of my life without kissing a girl, and I made it up to the age of 21 while still being a virgin because I was extremely shy and I got extremely nervous and awkward if I tried to talk to a girl. And, for most of my life, I never really asked a girl out or knew how to flirt with them. Even as I got older, I still had some social anxiety, so I was too afraid of rejection to go and approach them. But finally, as I turned 21 and I was still a virgin, I realized that this was something that I needed to really fix, right? This is something that I needed to work on. And I'm guessing a lot of guys who are watching this are in the exact same boat that I used to be. And I'm sure even if you're a girl, you're going to be able to relate to my story here. So before I decided to really go out and try to start conversations with girls, try to meet women, before I started, I actually studied different dating advice for probably a few months, before I actually approached the first girl seriously. And here's basically what happened. Probably for the first couple weeks, when I actually started going out, walking around my city, I went out to bars a few times. I would look around, I would walk around the city or look around the bar, and I would see a girl who I thought was attractive. And because I knew I was out, with a goal to go and talk to girls, whenever I saw a really cute girl, I would instantly get really nervous. I'd get anxious inside. And then I'd procrastinate. I would see the girl and I wouldn't go talk to her right away. I would maybe follow her for a bit, or maybe I would kind of pretend like I didn't see her. If I was in a bar, I'd say, I'll approach her in a few minutes. And I spent that few minutes trying to come up with what I would say to her. Right, so that was basically my first couple weeks of trying to do this experiment of going and trying to approach, girls who I didn't know. I ended up getting really nervous. I ended up procrastinating a lot and just thinking of what to say. And then I ended up making just more and more excuses, like she's walking too fast, she's too busy. And then I just wouldn't actually go and approach them. If I was with a friend, then I found that it was easier to go up and talk to girls when I felt really nervous because my friend would often push me to go. So I'll tell you a typical scenario. I'll tell you what typically happened when I first started trying to approach girls. I'd be at the bar with my friend, and my friend would notice me checking out some girl at the bar, and he'd push me to go. And at first I'd resist, but then I thought, I did go to the bar specifically to talk to girls, so even though I felt extremely nervous and anxious and shy inside, I actually did walk up to some girls. And what usually happened is I would walk up to the girl at the bar, for example, feeling really bad, really self-conscious, really awkward inside. I'm sure my posture was bad. I was probably speaking way too quietly. I was probably making very bad eye contact. I was super afraid of getting rejected and embarrassed and shot down, and all these other people at the bar or on the street might see me getting rejected. So I felt very nervous doing this, and I felt very bad. So because I felt so nervous and I felt awkward, I basically just got rejected over and over and over again in the beginning. I just bombed every single time I tried to go talk to a girl. And if you remember back to the last video, When it comes to like a cycle of confidence, what happens when you get negative evidence? You have to create an explanation for it. So back then, I had many insecurities. I didn't like my appearance. I didn't have that great of a social life, and I was paranoid about people finding out I was a loner or a loser. And so my explanation for my lack of success with girls at the beginning, I thought that my appearance was actually causing my lack of success. And, I'm kind of a short guy too, about 5'6", so I thought that could be a part of it too. And I also thought that maybe some guys just grew up with, this ability to talk to women, and it's something that I didn't have. So I created all sorts of explanations and insecurities about why I wasn't getting success. And I'm sure you can relate to this story. Maybe you haven't did the same experiment that I did. Maybe you haven't been rejected brutally sometimes by hot girls, but I'm sure that you felt many times in your life unwanted and forgotten. Maybe you went out and you met some people, and maybe you even exchanged phone numbers, but you feel like people don't really make an effort to try to get to know you. They're not really interested in you. They might be turned off if you act awkward or if you're quiet. Maybe they don't invite you out to places. Maybe if you remember back to school, you might have been the person who was always sitting alone in class, or the person who avoided people in the cafeteria. Have you ever felt this way? That most people just don't seem to like you? They're not drawn to you? And on the other hand, you see that a lot of other people often have no problem having friends, having a great social life, and so on. So why do people get turned off? And why did I keep getting rejected by girls in bars and on the streets in the beginning? Well, it's actually not because of the reasons that I thought. It's not because I was too short or not good looking enough, or because I didn't have some kind of natural skill with women that other guys had. It actually has to do with assumptions, which I've talked about before. Our assumptions or predictions of what is going to happen in social situations usually come true. What do I mean by this? Well, if you assume that you'll be accepted, then you usually will. And if you predict that you get disapproval or rejection, then you also usually will. So the key to making people like you is assuming they will like you. I know it sounds like a paradox, but it's true. Think about it this way. Going back to that example I gave of approaching girls, if I had assumed that the girl would be attracted to me, or at least that she would be friendly, then how would I have acted instead? Well, probably I wouldn't have waited around before talking to her. If I had assumed that those girls would accept me, then I probably would have simply walked over in a relaxed way, soon after I saw her, and just said the first thing that popped into my head. And then the conversation would have gone from there. And you know what? I've approached plenty of other girls since then, and the biggest thing that determined whether they accepted or rejected me was my own behavior and my assumption of their acceptance. My appearance barely changed. So you are always unconsciously broadcasting your inner beliefs to the people around you. You're doing this through your behavior, from the way you make eye contact, to your posture, to the tone of your voice, to how open you feel to express your real personality and humor, to hundreds of other little micro expressions. And people pick up on these signs or cues in your behavior, and this determines how they usually respond to you. So, if you walk up to someone confident and relaxed with an assumption of acceptance, then that communicates a lot about you. When you're able to enter a social situation or start a conversation with someone in a way that shows that you think they're probably going to like you, then it's really powerful. It communicates that you probably have a group of people who already accept you. It communicates that you consider yourself valuable and worth getting to know. It also communicates that you believe you have something to offer this person. On the other hand, if you walk up to someone nervous and insecure, then what does that communicate? Well, it probably communicates that most people don't like you. Otherwise, why would you be so scared? It also communicates that you probably don't have a lot to offer. Maybe you're trying to get something from this person or trick them. And it also communicates that you probably don't consider yourself valuable. And if people can see through your lack of confidence that you yourself don't think you're valuable, then why should they think that you're valuable? After all, who knows you better than you know yourself? So like I explained to you before, shyness and social anxiety, a lack of confidence, low self-esteem, it's usually an assumption of disapproval. Feelings of nervousness and anxiety and awkwardness before talking to a girl basically revealed my belief that I thought I would probably get rejected. So when you have this assumption of disapproval or rejection, you feel like people won't like you for some reason. You believe that the real you is unacceptable, and therefore you need to hide parts of yourself to get acceptance, or you need to perform in some way through a conversation to get people to like you. And here's 3 quick examples to really hammer this home. Why are you afraid to talk to that girl or guy you like? The fear comes from a prediction that they will reject you. If you really believe deep down that you two would have a great conversation, then why would you be so afraid? Or why do you find it so difficult to hold conversations, especially with people you don't know well? Well, the biggest thing that kills you and makes you run out of things to say is thinking you need to say some super interesting thing. You assume that they'll disapprove of you unless you perform for them. Or, why is it so hard for people with social anxiety to form close friendships or relationships? Well, since you can't easily relax around someone and put your real self out there until you've known them for a long time, it becomes very difficult to connect. The reason why you have this fear of vulnerability is because you unconsciously assume people wouldn't like the real you. So these are just 3 examples of how your beliefs come through in your behaviors in your daily life. And one of the most common negative beliefs that I'm going to start to unwire right now for you is this belief that people don't like you or that you're not attractive because of some physical insecurity. So what are some common insecurities that people who have shyness, social anxiety, low confidence have? Well, maybe it's your appearance. Maybe you think you're too ugly, or maybe you think you're too tall or too short. Maybe you think you're too skinny or too fat. Maybe your teeth are crooked, or your nose is too big. Maybe you think your penis or breasts are too small. Those are very common insecurities. For me personally, I thought my front teeth were very crooked for most of my childhood, which made me very insecure about, my teeth, that part of my appearance. And I was even afraid to smile or to show my teeth to people because I thought if they saw that my teeth were kind of crooked, they wouldn't like me. Another type of insecurity is around your lifestyle. Maybe you think you have no social life and you try to hide it from people. Maybe you think your lifestyle is boring and uninteresting. Maybe you believe that because you're a loner or a virgin, that means that people simply won't like you. Well, I've got some news for you. Despite what people's Facebook profiles make them look like, their actual lives aren't as interesting as people, try to make you believe they are. Most people just have a job or school. They have a handful of friends that they actually hang out with, and they have a couple of other hobbies or interests. And the reason why you may feel insecure about your lifestyle is because you compare your behind the scenes to other people's highlight reels. When other people post stuff on Facebook, like photos or status updates of what they're doing, that's the highlight reel of their life. And they're not going to show you the behind the scenes unless you are their close friend. So just keep that in mind. Most other people's lives, they're really not as interesting as, they might appear to be. Another category of insecurity is about yourself. Not your appearance, but, how you are. Maybe it's your anxiety or shyness itself. That's what you feel insecure about. So whenever you start feeling nervous, You try to hide it from people. You don't want anyone to notice when your heart starts beating faster or when you're shaking, sweating, or blushing. So I want you to find your insecurity. Here's an important question that I ask most of my clients. What's the thing you are most worried about people noticing or finding out about you that would lead them to reject you? So if you ask yourself that question, it's going to point you into the direction of where your biggest insecurities are. And another quote, people who fear rejection usually act as if they have some deep dark secret that would mean instant loneliness if it were discovered. That's a quote by Jonathan Brent. And maybe you can't really point at one thing you feel super insecure about, but you just feel kind of ashamed about yourself in general. And if that's your situation, then you may have something called toxic shame. And toxic shame is a belief that you're unworthy of love. And it's like I mentioned in the last video, traumatic childhood experiences is what causes this. It's often caused by bullying at a young age or parental abandonment experiences. So for example, I had toxic shame, a lot of it growing up, partially because my parents weren't around that much. My parents own a business, a couple of them now, basically fast food restaurants. So they started this business when I was 3 years old, and at the beginning, for the first few years, they were working 7 days a week, basically morning till night. They left at around 9. They came home at around 10, sometimes 11. So they were basically gone, all day and all evening from the house. And what I later found out is that when someone has an experience like this of parental abandonment, a lack of attention, that can cause toxic shame. In a way, it's kind of like a traumatic experience for a young child. Even though they didn't mean to do it, it was basically their only option. But I'm just saying that's probably the effect that it had. It caused me to have toxic shame and to start to develop these beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy of love, and so on and so forth. I talked about early childhood traumas in the last video. So something like bullying or a similar experience to what I had, that could also cause you to feel just generally shameful about yourself and insecure. Now here's where things get interesting. People don't usually mind your insecurity. If you don't believe me, then look around. Even ugly, obese people have friends. Even stinky homeless people have boyfriends and girlfriends. Even people who are completely unintelligent and have no life and watch reality TV all day have confidence. So think about whatever you feel insecure about, and no matter what you think your flaw or defect is, you can find people with the exact same flaw who are able to have friends, confidence, and romance. So people hate your feeling of insecurity, not the thing you are insecure about itself. In fact, ever since I overcame my social anxiety, I've noticed that a lot of people have maybe a girlfriend or boyfriend, but they don't really have a social life. So that's really not a barrier. And this is something that took me a long time to accept. I fought this idea and resisted it. I thought that my appearance was the real reason for my lack of confidence and a girlfriend. But eventually I realized the truth. And I realized that the key to making people like you is not in trying to appear flawless or perfect, or trying to fit into some mold promoted by the media for how you should be. The key to making people like you is being comfortable with yourself first. When you're comfortable with yourself, instead of being haunted by low self-esteem and self-shame and all these negative beliefs that cause you to feel bad about yourself, then you get rid of the assumption of disapproval that sabotages you. And once you get good at assuming people will like you, you'll see them respond much differently. Not just girls who you talk to, but people you meet in many other situations too. So this takes me back to this chart. So if you look at the box at the top left, those are the beliefs that we're trying to change. But here's the problem. It's very hard, it's almost impossible to try to change these beliefs directly. I mean, people have tried. A lot of people try to change these beliefs directly by saying affirmations. So they repeat to themselves things like, I am good enough, I am attractive, I am confident. But what scientists have found is that those types of statements, those types of affirmations, don't work. Some types of therapy also try to change your beliefs by making you write down all your thoughts and try to figure out the beliefs behind them and realizing the flawed logic behind your beliefs. And that approach does actually work for some people. But it's slow, it takes a lot of time, and most people don't stick to it long enough to actually see results. And they also don't really combine it with what I'm going to show you later too. So basically, trying to change your beliefs directly is very, very difficult. But what you can do is you can change the other boxes in the cycle. And when you work on changing the other boxes in the cycle, it's going to be able to change your beliefs directly. Remember, each box of this cycle feeds into itself. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to change your beliefs indirectly by working on the other boxes of this confidence cycle.